o'clock. We will start in 60 seconds. We'll start in 10 seconds. Well, welcome everyone. You're connected today to Associated Colleges of Illinois webinar on digital analytics. My name is John Brooks. I'm Director of Communication for ACI, and I'm here to welcome you and also to introduce you to our web partner, Xcelacore, and welcome John Suffren, who is Senior Sales Executive with Xcelacore. He will introduce our speaker today. John?
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending. As John said, my name is John Suffren. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Please note that you are all in mute, so if you do have questions, I'll be monitoring the question box in the right-hand menu as well as the chat box. So, but please go ahead and put any questions you may have as we go through the session today in the question box, and I'll be sure to monitor those and get your questions answered. The presentation, we plan on a 30-minute presentation with a demo, followed up by a question and answer session so that we can get everyone moving on throughout their day. And again, we will answer questions throughout, but also have a period at the end of the session today for questions and answers. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Mansoor Anjarwala from Xcelacore. Mansoor is the founder of Xcelacore and has multiple years of experience in the information systems space. He's worked for the likes of Accenture, Aetna, and ACO brands. Mansoor has his master's in information systems and e-commerce from DePaul University. And I will go ahead and pass the torch to Mansoor after that introduction. And again, I will be monitoring the question box as anyone has questions. Please feel to put them in, and we'll get them answered. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoy your session. And Mansoor, it's all yours.
Thank you, John. Thanks to both Johns. Again, I also want to thank everybody for attending today. And today, so we're going to talk about digital and analytics and why it's important for your institution and critical for your digital success to attract more students, donors, etc. Just like a quick second about Xcelacore, we specialize in three things: digital marketing, analytics, and the technology piece. But from the clients we work with, one of the most important things is, most important, I guess, challenges or things to really that the clients want to focus on is the analytics side, is just understanding from a reach perspective for your audience through various channels, website, mobile, email, social media, what's the best way to optimize those channels. So that's kind of going to be our focus today. Like understanding where your audience is coming from, and once that audience is on your website, what are they doing there? Are they accomplishing the goals that you have for your website? So how can you learn these things regarding driving people to your website, but also understanding what they're doing there? One of the best ways is to Google Analytics. Once implemented, Google Analytics puts all this data in front of you to analyze and to make actionable insights. So my goal today is to give you a brief, just an overview of Google Analytics, and then do a demo using ACI as a use case on how they have been able to leverage Google Analytics to make actionable insights for their business. So quickly, agenda, we'll talk about the importance of analytics and messaging to students, stakeholders, donors, and others. I'll take a few minutes to talk about key concepts and tools, specifically important to reading the next bullet, which is the reports in Google Analytics. And I'll introduce you guys to the metrics and a few key reports that will help you understand your audience and what your engagement is on your website. and we'll use that and we'll use the different channels like websites, social, email, and mobile, different activities to understand how you're engaging in those different channels, and we'll do that all through a use case of ACI. So define digital analytics. So quickly, I wanted to just take a minute and give you, I guess, the theoretical, like the Google definition of what's digital analytics. And this definition comes from Avinash Kaushik, who's a thought leader in the space. So he defines it as it's the qualitative, quantitative understanding of your data to use that data for continual improvement of your online experience in order to reach a specific outcome that you want. What's your desired outcome? And in that process, it's to uncover vital information about how you engage with your audience so that you can make key business decisions on the effectiveness of your engagement. So it's kind of long-winded, but it kind of gets to like, okay, it's looking at your data in order to improve your online experience and make key decisions is really just kind of simply summarizing what the definition of analytics is. Analytics, again, taking that further, once we start looking at Google Analytics, you'll able to see reports across all channel campaigns and channels to give you guidance on how to optimize performance and get actionable insights. So you'll be able to answer questions like who is visiting, what are their demographics, how did they get to the site, and once they got to the site, what are the different pages they visited and how long, and what do they do in that path, in the different paths on your website. So why is it important, right? So your website is a big part of your institution, but some of the important questions you should be asking is, well, how does my website help me reach my business goals, right? And even in the institutional education space, goals can be different, right? It could be reaching alumni, new students, existing students, donors, other stakeholders. The messaging could be different. You really need to take time to define those objectives because once you define them, you'll be able to measure in different ways. So every organization needs to measure itself in different ways. Challenges may be similar, but once you write that down and come up with your key performance indicators, you'll be able to use a tool like analytics to baseline that data and then see how you're doing over time. So what's at stake for you if you don't, right? Losing engagement with your students and alumni, lost opportunities and revenue, inefficient marketing dollars spent, and overstaffing or underutilized resources. So the summary of this slide is the need is urgent to really understand what you're doing online in order to compete in a competitive environment today. So that's why the need is urgent. And so quickly, this just talks about why it's important to leverage that. 40% organizations that make the use of web expect to grow 40% faster than those that don't, by the Boston Consulting Group, connected in an article last year. So it just talks about the importance of why leveraging analytics and using the web to grow is important for your institution. So just a couple of slides before we get into the demo regarding, so what's the first step, right? So we talked about defining your objectives. So based on those objectives, you define a measurement plan, and based on the measurement plan, then you talk to your tech folks, and you say, well, here's the different things, here's the reports I need. 80% of that you'll probably get out of the box in Google Analytics, but just by looking at the reports. But if there is things that need customization, then you can work with them to create an implementation plan, implement, and then maintain and refine is basically looking at that data and making sure that you're getting the reports you needed, and then continue that process over time. Kind of we talked about defining objectives, create a measurement plan, make sure it's implemented, and then continue that process by looking at your data on a continuous basis. Digital marketing. So just quickly, so we're going to talk about how your traffic is doing on your website. But here's the 4 different boxes on the ways you should be using to drive traffic to your website. It's through SEO, it's through paid search and Google AdWords, it's through social media, and it's through email marketing. And then once you're doing all these four tactics or strategies, then it's optimizing and looking at from an analyst perspective which one is working best for you, and which one where do you want to throw more money at, because everyone's value or everyone's optimization is going to be different on which channel is working best for them. So now is the kind of next step into like the meat of the presentation or the webinar, which is basically getting into Google Analytics. I'll show you how to create an account, or what you need to do to create an account, what you do to get going in terms of your website, Google Analytics reading your website data. And then we'll talk about reading the reports. Then one of the most important pieces is setting up goals and conversions, and then using also collecting campaign data. So those four channels we talked about, how do you make sure that you're tagging everything correctly so that it shows up in analytics correctly. So let's go into Google Analytics. Here's where we'll use ACI here. So we're going to go into, so I'm going to just start from Google. So what you're basically doing is going into analytics, google.com/analytics. And when you first come in, you'll have to sign in. So if you haven't done this, you'll have to create an account, sign in. Once you do that, you basically click on Google Analytics, and you'll end up on a dashboard. Now, when you first come here, you guys won't all see. We manage a lot of different companies, so you won't see anything here. But once you create your first website property and it's tracking correctly, then you'll see, for example, Associated Colleges of Illinois. I'll click here to all website data, which is their view, and I'll land here. I'll take a minute. John, any questions so far regarding where we're at? I'll take a minute to just address any questions before we actually then now get into looking at Google Analytics and introducing the platform.
Nothing so far, Mansoor. We seem to be good to go.
Great. So now I'll get into looking at the platform. So first of all, when you first come in, you'll see a dashboard. The dashboard is always set to the last 30 days. And you can click on this right here to change any format. So for example, if you want to see just June, you want to see last month, you click on May, you hit apply, and now they'll just give you the actual analytics data for May. So to introduce you to the UI, this left-hand side are access to all your different reports. And on the top nav is other things in terms of managing your account, customization, admin. So for example, if you go to admin, here's where you're going in and actually managing your users and creating your first kind of website to manage and report. You go back into reporting. So let me introduce you from the dashboard perspective, some key metrics. First one is sessions. So for example, I'm looking at the last May data. Sessions is the number of times your website has been accessed or someone has visited your website. So for example, in ACI's case in May, they had 1,135 people come to their site based on 868 users. The difference between users and sessions is I, Mansoor, may have visited ACI's website multiple times. So I'll be as a user counted once, but then the number of sessions, it's multiple. So that's why there's a difference there. And based on those sessions, how many pages did I visit or did the users visit? So this is the total number of page views, 2,094, that ACI had during the month, based on basically an average of 1.84 pages per session. So this now starts to talk about what their engagement is when they get to their site. How many pages deep are people getting into? Session duration also talks about engagement. So session duration is a metric that says how long did someone stay on your site. And then a very key or important metric in analytics is bounce rate. Bounce rate is the number of times a user visits a specific page and then bounces right away to another site. to somewhere else. And that adds up to a bounce rate for the overall site. So the lower the bounce rate, usually the better your engagement your site has. People are getting to your site and staying and interacting as opposed to possibly leaving right away. In some cases, if you have a thank you page or they're done and that specific page bounce rate is high, that may be okay. But in this case, the overall bounce rate determines the entire site. Okay, so that's the dashboard. Let me get into, and what I'll do here is I'll show you the different type of reports. So there are four specific reports, four specific reports: audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversion. The first is audience. Yeah, audience is basically information about your user base who has come to the site. So let's start, for example, one of the key reports is one of my favorites is mobile. So in mobile, this report will tell you exactly. So if you click into the report, this report tells you exactly how many people that visit your website visit a desktop through mobile or tablet. So in ACI's case, of the 1135 that we talked about for the month of May, 1,000 was desktop, 80 was mobile, and 15 were tablet. So this gives them a good indication of where the users are coming from and where they need to optimize, right? So as mobile's growing, a lot of times you'll start to see in some different clients that we have that mobile traffic and desktop is 50-50. In ACI's case here, their desktop is still at 90%. Later in a little bit, I'm going to talk about goals and conversions, which is really one of the most powerful things about Google Analytics. In goals and conversions, for each report, once you start tracking what are different conversions in your site, then you'll be able to then track it even at each report will give you that, will give you where they're converting the best at, right? So for ACI's case, they have created a goal called donation. So they track every time someone clicks on the donate button. So in this case, they could see for the month of May, they had desktop users visited, and from that, they had 17 people click on the donate button, which is good information for them to understand what their traffic is doing. Again, I gave you some information regarding the different metrics. So every report you go into, the same metrics are shown again. So sessions, the number of new sessions, users, the bounce rate. Again, the bounce rate shows up again in all these different reports, as well as the numbers per session, average duration. So the metrics you saw on the dashboard, now these metrics are all now going to show up in all the different reports. So let's stay in. Do we have a question?
Mansoor, we do have one question, yeah, sure. Which was bounce rate. Bounce rate, does that include opening up a new tab, or when one leaves the site and closes the tab, the browser tab that they're on?
It doesn't include a new tab. If you stay on the website and the website is stayed there, then that means that that's not a bounce. It only is a bounce if you leave the website altogether in that same browser session, in that same tab session.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, let's continue. I still want to kind of spend just a couple more minutes in the audience, and then we'll go to the acquisition reports. Let's look at geo is always an important report, so you can go into geolocation. You can drill down into, like for ACI's case, I'll drill down into United States. And now they can start seeing where their traffic by state is. And again, same thing, be able to track their conversions and goals. So in this case, you see a lot of John ACI's traffic coming from Illinois. Obviously, that's the state that they mostly function in, but they can also see where other traffic and from other states are coming from. And you can drill down into a specific state and then even get down into city level traffic. Let's look at one more report before we go to acquisition. real quickly. Let's look at behavior. So again, in terms of behavior, this one, for example, report gives you the same data, but for now, whether the users were new visitors or returning visitors. So Google Tracks use cookie tracking. So if you've been to a site once and you come back again, as long as you haven't cleared your cookies, then they consider you a returning visitor to a specific website. So this gives ACI information based on the 1135 that we talked about. How many were brand new visitors and how many had previously visited and returned again. And again, that same information, what their engagement was, but more importantly, what was their conversion. Any questions on audience? So I won't go through all the reports. My goal is to just kind of give you sampling of what's available in Google Analytics in each report type. So audience is basically gives you information about your users. The next set of reports is acquisition, and that exactly is what that means is how did you acquire that user to the website? So probably the most powerful report in all of Google Analytics to me is this channel report, which gives information regarding exactly where a user came from based on how they reached the website. So as you can see, the breakdown of ACI is a lot of referral traffic. I actually have to look at this. This referral traffic might be Google Analytics has a problem internally where there's some spam traffic that occurs, and that can be easily cleaned out. So it's possible some of this referral traffic is spam. I think that you can even see by the donations that most of ACI's traffic is coming from direct and organic. But then also they also are doing a nice job in terms of driving traffic from social and email. And again, the reason I think this is one of the most powerful reports is if you look at these channels, you can start looking at, okay, based on which channel, where is my engagement, my bounce rate, my pages per session, my site duration, where is it the best, and where am I converting the best? So if ACI said tomorrow I want to spend money on social or an SEO program, then they can start looking at to see, well, where am I getting my donations from, where am I getting conversions I'm interested in, and then they can use that this report to make that decision, or at least they have this insight before they start doing that. The next report, I don't think it's ACI is not about doing AdWords today. I'll just show you. But if you're doing any type of paid search, I highly recommend that you integrate your paid search account, your AdWords account, with your analytics account, because you'll be able to tie in all the keywords you're buying and what you're buying and what they did on your site together all in one report. So in these AdWords reports, Google gives you that. Very, very, very important if you do that. And you also get information like once you start doing that, what keywords and what search queries people did to get to your site in your AdWords account, how much you spent, but more importantly, based on that spend, what was the conversion. The next one I'm going to show you is this campaign report. And so ACI does a really amazing job in terms of tracking their, for example, different emails. And I'll show you an example. I'm going to actually change the time period from March to, let's just say today. Apply. So what that does for me is now shows me a report of all the different email campaigns I did. So basically I gave them a way of tagging each email and specifying the name of the campaign. And based on that, so for example, they were sending out emails in April for an event that they were promoting. So as you can see, they put as a campaign name the date of the email and the email going out, and based on that email, John could exactly see the number of sessions, again, users, bounce rate, and the completion. So like what donations they got. If there were other goals like, hey, did they go to a specific, actually, So like they have a couple of goals here, which I'll show you how to set up. They could see exactly from the email what goals they met and what the engagement. So this doesn't have to be for email. This campaign could be if you buy a banner ad and you can tag it. It's basically 3 simple parameters that Google gives you. What's the campaign name? What's the source? What's the what's the medium, and then you can use those parameters to exactly see what traffic you got from that. So if you're buying a banner ad from somewhere, you're doing an email, you're doing some social media, make sure you add these parameters because you can easily see what that specific campaign and what traffic it led.
So, Mansoor, we got one question, and I'm going to try to interpret it, but it's basically around print advertising and incorporating other things that aren't necessarily digital, and how to get those into this type of a report. So, if print advertising was going to parents, let's just say, and that would the institution need to create a landing page specifically for that print material, so to be able to track the return on investment of that information?
Yeah, that would be the best way. I mean, I guess if I mean, I would have probably get into the specifics, but that would be a good way. For example, creating a landing page or somewhere they're landing on the digital side could be probably is the best way to monitor how that print is doing. I'm sure there are other ways of providing codes, or I mean, depending on like if it's retail, you may be able to provide a code that you could tie into analytics. Um, Landing page could be a good way. I'm trying to think of others, but I mean, yeah, I think that
Okay.
there are ways. Just specifically thinking about the strategy and how you would execute on it to tie it together. There's also Google also has an import and export feature, so you could take offline data, import it into analytics, and find a way to tie in together web traffic and some of that data also. So there could be different ways to do about that. One more report and acquisition while I'm here, and then we'll get into behavior, and then we'll talk about conversions. Social is also a great report because as more people come up with different social strategies of where they're at, you can also then exactly see what traffic you got in a specific social network. So ACI does a lot of Twitter and LinkedIn posting. So they could even get down, you click on Twitter, you could see what URL was shared in the posting in the social network. So how they got there, and same thing based on someone coming to the site from that social, what were the page views and session duration. And kind of even these graphics show monthly of that happening. So again, very kind of key insight information that it all gives you once you have the tracking working. Let's continue. So that's acquisition. I'll take a second. Any questions about acquisition or audience? 2 reports we went through. Okay, so let's go to behavior. Behavior is basically what a user did on your site. So what's your page engagement? So one of the main reports I go into is called the Site Content All Page Report. And this gives you, based on URL or page title, what are the pages people are visiting on your site? What are the unique views? Like how many total times did that page get visited? But again, more important information is the average time, where they entered, what's the bounce rate per page, right? So that's where you're going to start looking at, where do I have a specific problem in any of my pages? So if you have, a high bounce rate, you can start thinking about, is there a specific reason why on that page people are leaving, or why people are leaving based on the content there. So that's how you start making some actual insight decisions regarding changing page data, testing, doing some A/B testing regarding what are stuff that you can change on the page to help with engagement. Some more on this landing. So landing pages is where a specific user would have landed once they got onto your site. Exit is where they left at. The similar data is by page, but shows exits, page views, percentage of exits. The behavior, there's also a behavior site speed. So if you're looking at improving SEO, Google looks at these numbers to make sure that you're optimized for SEO. So this will even tell you by browser what's your average load time per page. And if you have a specific problem for a specific page, like I helped a client recently. They looked at a specific page, and that specific page was, um, you know, 3 times higher than the rest of the site, and that's when we started looking at why so, right? So I would look at these numbers and understand what could be done from a page for, because you may have images that are heavy and this important. So Google uses this as an important factor in terms of SEO. So again, this data is available to look at. Um, that's pretty much it in terms of behavior. So now let's spend any questions about what we looked at for reports? I know it goes through a lot in a short time period, but I just want to make sure that you guys kind of get an introduction to the types of data available and how you can access it. A lot of this is obviously just getting going and looking at the reports on your own, but I wanted to make sure that you had an intro to how to use the UI. So now let's get into conversions, which is probably, again, one of the, like I talked about, the most powerful thing about Google Analytics. So we talked earlier, just to tie it together, coming up with objectives for what are objectives for your site. So when you do that, you're going to say, well, my objective is to get new registrations and the people to log in and people to visit these specific pages. So as you do that, you can actually create those as conversions in Google Analytics, and those show up in the conversion report. Will also show up in those different reports we talked about. So the way you set up goals is you go to admin, you go to this, once you get into a view, you click goals. Here, there's a simple process. I don't have access here, but here, let me, for example, go into my site, go to admin, go to goals. And if I do new goal, it walks you through a template, walks you through a wizard that says, okay, what's the goal that you want to set up? And you can say, okay, every time someone contacts me, that's a goal for me, and I want to know how that goal got met. So you click continue. You say, I'm going to specify the destination to them. That's how, right? So just for example, from your contact us, the user lands on a thank you.html page. And then you hit save. And I'm not sure if this is the exact URL, but if you do a verified goal, it'll tell you if it's working or not. Now your goal is set up. So I just set this up. So now once I've set this up, every time this goal is met, it'll show up in the report we just looked at. So let's go back to ACI. So like John set up, so I said contact us, he set up the news and headlines page goal as well as the donation goal. And that's how it's over here. So where's his donation goal? Not finding it. But anyway, that's how you start looking at what your conversions are for the site. I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes on doing that. And you can even start seeing from a funnel perspective, like how did people start reaching those goals? Where did they enter? How did they convert on those? So there's a lot of really, really powerful information in these goal conversions, because you can now start really getting into your data and looking at where someone started, what did they do on your site while they were trying to reach a goal, and then when did they do that goal, and how did they get that, right? So really dig deep into that data. I think that's it in terms of overview and reports. We have about 10 minutes. We could do a few questions. If not, I can get into a few other things that may be useful in terms of looking at analytics. John, do we have any questions yet? John?
Yeah, sorry. Hang on one
Okay.
second.
I'm sure.
I'm just okay. So from a return on investment perspective, any suggestions or ideas on where we might start first?
What do you mean by what is that? What do you mean by rate of investment?
So, return on investment, where do you think an educational institution should start in terms of an analysis on and measurement of their analytics?
Yeah, that's perfect. I think student enrollment. So I would, for example, take if I was an institution, I would look at, well, how does a student come into the site and apply to the institution, and see based on that, I would create a goal around that, and then I would start doing analysis around where am I driving traffic from, and where is that conversion in terms of students applying happening the best. And then I would start looking at, because the population is younger, is that through social media, email? How is my mobile conversions happening? So then I would start looking at, right, getting into this report we looked at earlier, which is, for that institution, what what device are they using, and then based on that enrollment, how they got met. I would also go into like this user flow report, and I would start looking at, okay, where are the students coming from, and based on that, what are they doing on my site to reach that goal of student applying at the institution.
Okay, we got two other questions. One was on social.
Okay.
How do we incorporate all the new social media pages into analytics? So, i.e., is there some way to, I'm just going to call one out, but, Snapchat, if we wanted to incorporate Snapchat and that was a new one, or the next new one, how do we incorporate those into analytics?
It's a good question. So this social report should tell you in terms of anywhere social wise where the traffic is coming from. But if you don't want to use that and you are doing your own posting, so if you have links, or say, for example, you did an image or something, or you did a promotion on Snapchat, I would just tag it based on so let me take a minute and just show you how that tagging works. So it's called Google URL parameter, Google URL builder. Um, and then, so if you go into the URL builder, so if you're familiar with this, so for example, let's just say from Snapchat, you're driving traffic to, let's take the ACI case. They're going to do a Snapchat promotion. Do they want to drive someone to their homepage, or let's just say, yeah, to their homepage? And they may say, what's the campaign source? The source you could say is Snapchat. Medium is post, or social post possibly, and then the name of the campaign, like July Snapchat promotion. And then if you do generate URL, Google gives you the URL to use, and then if you use this URL in your post, now basically Google has just tracked. I'm sorry, I typed that the website, it should be .org. I typed the URL wrong, but now you have basically provided the necessary information for Google to track it by campaign. So even if that social was not coming up in the social report, you could have now gone into campaigns, gone here, and just look for the campaign Snapchat, and you would be able to get this data in the campaign report. So those are two ways I would think of it, look at it.
Okay, we've got another question. What are the most important reports to look at on a regular basis?
Good question. So one of the important ones is the ones I went through in my mind. You could, one thing we didn't talk about is dashboards. You could create your own dashboard. So Google out of the box provides a dashboard that shows information that they thought are important. Really, I mean, that question is based on what information is important to you. But then you could take those reports and add them to a dashboard, and then just go to the dashboard to view them. I think just looking at each of these reports in terms of, if you go to audience, I really like the geo and the mobile reports. In acquisition, I love the channel report, the AdWords, and the campaign section, as well as social. And the behavior, it's that site content, all pages. So really, the ones I went through are my favorites in terms of getting good data right away.
Okay. We got another question. Can you help? Well, I'll answer this one. Can you help me get my Google Analytics account set up? Um, and that's yes, we definitely can help you get your Google Analytics account set up. We can help you maintain and manage and give you some good feedback on existing data you may be
That's right.
encountering as well.
Yeah, that's right. We could help you set that up, and we can also help you do the analysis and providing these reports in that dashboard way. We can help you with that.
Okay. Okay, we just got a few minutes left. I'll continue to monitor questions.
Okay. We have 4 minutes. Be happy to use that time to answer any other questions. I'm trying to think what else I could quickly cover that may be important. I do have a couple things in mind. I'll use the minutes for that unless we get any other questions.
Go for it.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that in acquisition, one of the problems that Google Analytics has is referral traffic. So if you go into referral traffic, you can start looking at source. And if you start looking at these sources and realize, well, this traffic is probably not somewhere I would advertise or why my site would be there. Because referral traffic means that your website link was on another site, and that's how they got to, like, for example, ACI site. So I think, for example, this rank checker, I mean, Elmhurst EDU is obviously fine. This keywords is probably not good traffic. So then what I would do is there's a way to filter out traffic. So I'll use, for example, uh, my website, go to admin, go to filters. And what I've done is I've created a filter called, the name is not exactly perfect, but I've created a filter called it's called simple share. It should just be exclude spam. And then I basically created a filter that basically filters that traffic out. So for example, if you go into my referral traffic, where am I referral traffic? So if you go into mine refer, I still have a few here, but see the number is a lot smaller. Or some of it's actually okay. I've got some stuff with LinkedIn, Facebook. So most of my referral traffic is valid traffic. This again, keywords monitoring is probably not. So I probably would now filter. It's one of the tools in analytics is you can filter out traffic you don't want to see to get an accurate reporting of your traffic. So that's one recommendation I have in terms of filtering. The other is whenever you're working and you get your analytics set up, you by default you get a kind of a default view, which is going to be your master view. Whenever you start making changes to your goals, filters, anything, then you can create. I recommend creating a new view because then your master view never gets touched. It's just I guess best practice.
Okay. Why don't let's go ahead and maybe wrap up.
Okay,
And
sure.
there aren't any more questions, but I do want to go ahead and make sure that we end on time. And I do want to let everyone know, or thank everyone again for attending today's session, and to let you know that the webinar has been recorded, so we will have everything that you've seen recorded and will be embedded on ACI's website here in the near future as we are able to accomplish that task. If you and you'll be able to backtrack and find the information there. If there's anything more we can do from an Xcelacore standpoint, our information will also be there, but you can find us at xcelacore.com. That's Xcelacore.com. Again, my name is John Suffern, and Mansoor, thank you very much for all the information you've been able to provide to everyone today. Thank you for attending. I don't see any more questions. John, is there anything that John Brooks, is there anything you'd like to say as we close?
Uh, no, other than to thank you and Mansoor, and to indicate that if anyone does have a question and you're not able to get connected to Xcelacore, just write to me, John Brooks, or jbrooks at acifund.org, jbrooks at acifund.org, and we'll get the questions answered as quickly as we can. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great day and a great rest of the week. And we'll say goodbye now.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.